Fenner Tanswell, who's a philosopher of science based in Berlin.
Good. All right. I want to talk a bit about the good and the bad of AI and use some of the slangy terms to talk about it. So a question that has come up often, especially at big proof meetings, is why don't more mathematicians formalize their work? And well, the first two, well, they don't want to or they don't think it's necessary. Those are questions of hearts and minds, and that is slowly getting better and better. But the other two, well, I don't have time and I don't know how, are questions of sort of resources and what a mathematician has time for, maybe incentives and academic incentives for what they can and can't do. And this is where maybe vibe formalization is something that could address it, right? So what's vibe formalization? Well, it's like the maths version of vibe coding. Vibe coding was the word of the year in 2023, I think, and obviously it's very big now. Right, using an LLM to do your coding without understanding or already checking the code. Right? Is that good or bad? Well, a bit of both, right? I don't know how to code. Now I can do cool coding projects. That's maybe a nice thing. That's a good thing. Also, right, I put this delicately, several large tech companies have reported major security incidents and outages as a result of internal usage of vibe coding and AI agents to do things. So that seems like a bad side of it, right? Maybe good and bad, right? So vibe formalization, maybe this is the equivalent for mathematics, right? Formalizing some piece of mathematics using a large language model, where really understanding the formal language or system or checking the code in detail. Right? You've got the LLM to do it for you. That's great. While I was preparing this, I came across this. I have no idea about it at all, but the Mistral version of Lean, and they explicitly talk about vibe coding in Lean, right? So we're impressed with this. If anyone knows about this or has tried it out, I'd be very interested in hearing about it and knowing whether it's any good. Good. So I started thinking about this, coming across one of the papers that I suppose has been out there and seen a fair bit, also related to ERDOS problems by Alexeyev and Mixon. They produced one of they solved one of the ERDOS prize problems, and then discovered a solution in the literature from before ERDOS had even set the problem, and then we're a bit unsure about what to make of that. And I think somewhere in the paper they talk about having an overabundance of caution and wanting to formalize it. But they didn't know how to formalize it, right? So they talk about using sort of vibe coding a Lean proof for this, right? And so they have some nice stuff in the paper about this. They say, for example, it was clear to us that Lean would help us determine the truth, but we didn't know Lean. However, ChatGPT could write Lean, so we decided to vibe code the whole proof. It took a whole long time, about a week, and the process was extremely annoying, but somehow it succeeded. Right? That's good. And in the next paragraph, they say, one thing we came to realize is that Lean is actually a perfect setting for vibe coding. In general, vibe coding is good for generating code that appears to work well, but might contain bugs. We might say hallucinations as well. It turns out that Lean is also a great match for vibe coding, but for a completely different reason. If the code runs, you can trust it. And that's a nice point, and I'm going to say yes and no on that, what's to come, right, very quickly. So there's like a kind of like, the no is maybe like there's a quick no, which is that sometimes you can fix things while formalizing them. In fact, that's one of the points of humans wanting to do formalization. So this is a post from Tao, where he talks about having formalized some of his work in Lean, and then a referee finding a mistake in the stuff. And his analysis that you can read here, look at it, is that while he was formalizing it, he kind of intuitively fixed one of the problems, right? So there you've got a nice Lean proof, but the informal proof it corresponds to is marginally incorrect. It's got a typo. Now, that's not a very big problem because, well, the proof is right, it went in Lean. That's like a little problem. But still, if you then have the informal proof out in the literature and someone who doesn't know so well comes across it, they might be confused at some point. That's not great. A more serious problem with these things is what we can call vibe formalized crank mathematics. And this is the one time I thought, yeah, this is a good slide to use a slop picture from a slop thing. Yeah, so crank mathematics is sort of mathematics I think everyone's familiar with. That if you want to hear about philosophy in crank mathematics, Colin, who's up next, has a very nice article about crank mathematics and who does and doesn't get included in mathematical communities, which I would highly recommend. But here's like a new danger that comes about from vibe formalization in mathematics, right, is that cranks can also vibe formalize their things. And I had a nice example, and then I decided I didn't want to like dunk on some random member of the public who's just trying to do their maths with lean and follow the norms. So I've left it out, but I came across something very nice on the subreddit called Bad Mathematics, where people put bad things. So doing proper research here. But it was a link to a GitHub repository analyzing what had gone on there, and someone had totally wackadoodle crank mathematics, but with lean code that ran, right? Okay, that seems like a confusing thing. What's going on? How can that be? Well, first of all, it was spaghetti code, right? Like if you try and read it, you can't make any sense of it. And then under the hood, why is it actually succeeding? Well, at the end of the day, it has to be these kind of things, obscured trivialities and vacuously true theorems, are the hidden use of extra axioms. Right? Now, in this particular example I was looking at, it's split across multiple files, and it's redefining like, very basic things in terms of other things, giving fresh definitions that then mean that something that sounds very impressive is actually just trivial or vacuously true. Okay, but the kind of analysis of what probably happened with this is that someone sat down to formalize their stuff. It said, well, no, this doesn't run. It's like, well, try again and do better, ChatGPT. And then it said, okay, well, how about this version? And it did it and did it and did it until you have broken it into a way that does work. Right? If you bang your head against it long enough, then ChatGPT likes to do what you ask it to do. Right? Now, of course, Kevin was talking about this earlier. Of course, right, like type checking which axioms are used, like all these things, right? It's like, it's not that hard to detect, right? If you look at this stuff, no mathematician is going to be convinced about these things. Right, except that if you send in stuff like this at the rate at which ChatGPT can produce it for you, and members of the public can produce it for you, the 5 minutes it takes to check that it's really the correct theorem that you've got and to check that there isn't nonsense going on, is 5 minutes that will add up to a lot of minutes, right? Not only that, right? I don't think this was designed by design, but certainly the very like sort of crankish setup of it means that it's kind of hard to spot, right? Definitions are put in one file and then reused in the other file, and then the other file actually looks like legitimate mathematics, but only because it's calling on something over things, right? It's split across multiple files. The spaghetti code hides it. It's like obscured. It's hard to read, right? And if you've got a traditional paper like that, you would just say like, oh, okay, I can't make any sense of this. I'll put it away. If you get this coming in, then you say, oh, your reaction should be, I should do the same with that. Though now the crank will say, well, I've got a lean formalization. It runs. Why aren't you reading my stuff? Right. Okay. Okay. The other, like, the more mundane version is maybe like overcomplicated versions of mundane results. They'll also, like known results. They'll also compile, but won't be novel or interesting. Good. Right, this is like not a trivial problem. I wasn't here yesterday. I'm very sorry I didn't make it, but I assume you were talking about this a fair bit. But the problem of slop mathematics is, of course, like a problem for open science, right? Like the archive has a problem with this. I took some quotes from this paper from the Science Insider article by Nicola Jones. Right, she's talking about slop submissions to the archive going up exponentially. I'd be interested if they're going up even more today. Right, and there's a quote saying that new safeguards are needed in part because large language models will improve, making it harder or impossible for moderators to distinguish fake AI-generated papers from legitimate work. He's hoping that chatbot makers such as OpenAI will help archive read these out in futures. And to say something controversial, this to me seems like the case where arms dealers are selling weapons to both sides and saying, I hope they keep selling me weapons, right? Right. The other thing here, right, is that, of course, this is primarily about preprint articles, right? If it's lean code, it's another challenge altogether. Good. To finish, I guess I'm running out of time. Right, like these crank vibe formalizations are not the only kind of slop formal mathematics. Right, if you auto-generate formal mathematics by large language models, it can also exhibit similar features. Right, you can also get spaghetti code or the overuse of dead ends or unnecessary components that unclear notation or obscure references in between. Right, it can also be untidy code. Right. And this is something that's already come up, right, is that when they succeed at proving the result, low-quality formalizations can nonetheless hoover up credit and impede higher quality human formalizations. Right, that doesn't happen every time, but it can happen. Right? Okay, so just to conclude, right, vibe formalization can allow someone to formalize mathematical results without having to learn how to use an ITP. I think that the Alexiev and Dixon case is a very nice case, right? They weren't sure if it was right, and then they vibe coded it, and then they are now confident that it is, right? That's good. That's a good thing. But it also allows you to formalize slop mathematics and gumming up the gears of collective research. It wastes time and resources, both mathematicians, open access platforms, etc. Right? And it can drown out legitimate research from young or lesser known scholars. In the article I was quoting about the archive, right, one of the quotes is about most of this is coming from young scholars who just want to make a name for themselves. And I thought, well, that sounds like a good thing for them to be doing. They should be trying their best, right? If you're trying to prevent this, right, there's this definitely a problem catching more people than you want to. Right? If you get caught up in the net despite producing good work, that would be a problem too. Right, and it can take academic credit for lower quality work and strangle other formalization projects, which is a bad thing. Okay, quickly done. Thank you.